Welcome back to another episode of Just Podding Around, the show where we dive headfirst into wrestling history, PLE reviews, and everything that makes the world of pro wrestling so gloriously bizarre. I'm your host, Reese Williams, and today I'm bringing you a tale of blood, fireballs, riots, and one of the most insane wrestling territories you've probably never truly appreciated. I'm talking about the absolute madness that is Puerto Rican wrestling. Strap yourselves in, because this one's got all the chaos you didn't know you needed. Okay, let's lay it down. Puerto Rican wrestling, or Lucha Libre Puertorriqueña, is the beautiful, violent blend of American Southern-style wrestling psychology, Lucha Libre athleticism, and a hardcore, blood-soaked, weapon-filled presentation that makes ECW look like the Wiggles on tour. Whereas Mexican wrestling puts a huge emphasis on high-flying masked heroes and intricate mat work, Puerto Rico leans hard into the gritty street fights, vicious rivalries, and over-the-top babyface versus heel storytelling. Crowds there aren't your polite golf clap types either. These fans are passionate, loud, sometimes violent, and completely unfiltered. If you're a heel working in Puerto Rico, you aren't just worried about heat, you're worried about bottles, rocks, batteries, and sometimes a riot breaking out mid-match. Here's the thing, blading in Puerto Rican wrestling isn't rare, it's practically a rite of passage. Blood was expected in big matches. In fact, if someone didn't get colour by the end of a feud ender, the crowd would probably riot. Weapons? Everywhere. Steel chairs, chains, forks. Abdullah the Butcher practically had a sponsorship deal with cutlery companies at this point. Fireballs, barbed wire, trash cans, whatever you could get your hands on. Even the ringside fans would sometimes hand you something to use. Big shows like Aniversario, WWE's equivalent to WrestleMania, were notorious for these brutal brawls. The energy in these stadiums was so intense you could practically feel it through the screen. So, historically, there are two big promotions you need to know. Capital Sports Promotions, later known as WWC, the World Wrestling Council, founded in 1973 by Carlos Colon, Victor Jovica, and Gorilla Monsoon. Yep, the same Gorilla Monsoon you know from WWF commentary. WWC ruled the island for decades and brought in some of the wrestling's biggest names. I'm talking Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Stan Henson, Harley Race, Bruiser Brody, and of course Abdullah the Butcher. Then, in 1999, Savio Vega, you might remember him from WWF, broke away and launched IWA Puerto Rico. They leaned heavier into hardcore matches, introduced younger talent like Ricky Banderas, aka Mil Muertes, and booked stars like Vampiro, Jeff Jarrett, Scott Hall, and TNA crossovers. For a good stretch in the early 2000s, it was a genuine turf war between IWA and WWC, and talent jumping ship, arenas filling up and fans crossing sides. Now, what made Puerto Rican wrestling so memorable was the soap opera level storytelling mixed with street fight brutality. Your standard main event wasn't a chain wrestling clinic, it was a straight up fight. Start with some stalling and jawjacking. Quick escalation into a ringside brawl. Chairs get introduced, a few headshots, maybe someone's taking a swing with a fire extinguisher. Fans lose their minds, someone gets colour, ref loses total control. And if it was a grudge match, you could bet on interference, weapon shots, and someone getting stabbed with a fork. A heel win was usually dirty, maybe some loaded foreign object, a chair shot while the ref was down, or a handful of tights. Then came the post-match chaos. Babyfaces would make a comeback, send the heels running, and leave the crowd on a euphoric high, bleeding and battered but standing tall. Now, fast forward forward to today. Puerto Rican wrestling isn't as globally visible as it once was, but it's still there, fighting, bleeding, and holding it down for the island's fans. WWC still runs shows. The LAWE, or the Latin American Wrestling Entertainment, is a new player that's trying to modernise things while keeping that old school intensity. And if you caught Backlash 2023 from San Juan, you saw what happens when WWE remembers Puerto Rico exists. That crowd, absolutely electric. Bad Bunny stole the show in a legit street fight against Damian Priest. Not just a celebrity cameo, this bloke took Singapore cane shots, table bumps, and hit a Canadian Destroyer during the match. Incredible. And that pop when he entered blew the whole roof off. Modern Puerto Rican stars you should know would be Carlito, who returned at the Backlash 2023 and looked like he'd never left. Primo and Depico Colon, who was Carlito's brother and cousin. Zelina Vega, proud Puerto Rican heritage and a huge babyface pop at Backlash. And of course, Bad Bunny, who, let's be honest, is more over than half the WWE roster. And look, I can't talk about Puerto Rican wrestling without mentioning the darkest chapter in its history. July 16th, 1988, at a WWC show in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. Bruiser Brody, one of the most feared and respected brawlers in wrestling, was stabbed to death backstage by Jose Gonzalez, known to fans as Invader Number 1. Witnesses claimed it was over a financial dispute and simmering heat between the two. Tony Atlas was there, heard Brody's screams, and carried him to help. But here's the kicker. Jose Gonzalez was tried and acquitted. Most witnesses either fled the island or refused to testify. The aftermath shook wrestling to its core. Many American stars refused to work Puerto Rico for years after. The territory's reputation took a hit it never fully recovered from. If you've never gone down that rabbit hole, it's one of the most jaw-dropping stories in wrestling history. So, what's the takeaway here? Puerto Rican wrestling is one of the last true holdouts of old-school territory-style wrestling. It's passionate, bloody, chaotic, and driven by fans who treat it like life and death. It's brawls in ballparks, fireballs to the face, and legends forged in blood and broken chairs. And while the rest of the world might have moved on to slick LED boards and cinematic matches, down in Puerto Rico, the spirit of hardcore, passionate pro wrestling is still alive. If you've never checked it out, go dig up some old Carlos Colon vs. Abdullah the Butcher matches, or the Anniversario death matches from the early 2000s. You'll never look at a hardcore match the same way again. And that's it for this week's deep dive. If you enjoyed it, do me a favour, hit that follow button, leave a review, and tell me what territory, scandal, or wrestling legend you want to hear about next. Until then, stay safe, stay sharp, and remember, in Puerto Rico, it ain't wrestling until somebody's bleeding.